Welcome everyone to this seminar or webinar, as they call it, on ICH GCP, International Council on Harmonization, Good Clinical Practice. And probably as you are aware, this means all the rules and regulations to be followed while conducting clinical trials. That is all trials on human beings, and not how to do good clinical practice or practice as the layman knows. So we organize a seminar every year on this topic, since it is essential for all persons who are involved in research on humans to get trained on GCP. Therefore, I also welcome today members of Ayush faculties who have been requesting for this training for quite some time and were prevented from doing so by the imminent lockdown. So it's a good opportunity for everyone involved in clinical research to get also certified. This training is valid, and e-certificates will be provided to everyone for this training. So today for this training we have a distinguished speaker, MS Nidhi Saxena. She has got around 20 years experience in various fields of work, has accumulated experience of 13 years in clinical research, and has been a faculty in Indian Clinical Research Institute, ICRI, which started its office in Mumbai and was the pioneer institute for giving courses in clinical research, and had been also a part of the team of Cranfield University and ICRI for designing curriculum for MSc Clinical Research. She has designed courses related to healthcare management and clinical research for some universities and corporate colleges, has established clinical trial sites at different hospitals, including one at Parul University, has conducted training programs for hospitals and institutional ethics committees, and has, on top of it, authored 2 books on pharmacovigilance and quality in clinical research for Sikkim Manipal University distance learning program, and also a book on prescription writing. Apart from that, of course, she is a very good teacher and has taught undergraduate students of all hues, including medical, dental, and nursing. So welcome. It's my pleasure and privilege to invite her to begin her deliberations on the topic of GCP, or Good Clinical Practice. MS Nidhi, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on International Council of Harmonization, Good Clinical Practice. It's my pleasure to be a speaker because I have got a long association with Parul University even. So, to begin with, International Council of Harmonization, Good Clinical Practice, this is considered as a Bible for all the researchers who are being involved in conducting a clinical trial. So, see, it is beyond my capacity to complete or to cover the whole clinical research guidelines or good clinical practice guidelines. I will be focusing on some of the important topics or some of the important points of good clinical practice. So to begin with, ICH stands for International Council for Harmonization, and this is a requirement, technical requirements for pharmaceutical for human use. Objective of ICH GCP mainly is to provide a unified standard for the European Union, Japan, and United States. See, the main focus and main aim of ICH GCP was because there were so many guidelines, there were so many regulatory norms which one has to follow for conducting a clinical trial. And every country has got their own regulatory guidelines. So it was difficult for the pharmaceutical companies to follow all the guidelines and then to conduct a clinical trial. It was time consuming. Apart from that, lot of money was involved in it. So all the great countries, they thought of harmonizing the things so that it will become little bit easier for a pharmaceutical company and the drug will come to the market in a little bit lesser time. So time is going to get prevented, money is going to get prevented, and apart from that, duplication of the things are also going to get prevented. So what they did, they started harmonizing the things. And here, European Union, Japan, and United States, all of them came together and they formulated a guideline to facilitate the mutual acceptance of clinical data by the regulatory authorities. So this guideline should be followed when generating a clinical trial data. See, actually speaking, whenever we are conducting a clinical trial or any kind of a research, the data which is generated out of it is a huge, and many a times it is not of quality. So this guideline is going to provide you details how to focus on and how to generate a great data, which is going to give you a perfect scenario whether the drug is going to survive or it is not going to survive. So this guideline should be followed when generating clinical trial data that are intended to be submitted to the regulatory authorities. This is not going to include, not only going to include the drug, it is also going to include all other clinical investigation that may have an impact on safety and well-being of human subjects. So this is also going to include, apart from the intervention, medical devices, diagnostic, and each and every aspect of clinical investigation, which is ultimately going to affect the human subject. Mind it, it is just a guidance, it is not a regulation. But guidance, one has to comply with the guidance because ultimately, when we are not going to follow the guidance, we are not going to have a quality product with us. And whenever we are going to compromise with quality, definitely we are going to get some of the warning signals from the regulatory authorities like US FDA, EMA. So this is a standard which one has to follow when we are conducting a clinical trial. So when we are talking about that ICH-GCP is so important, we also should be aware of how this ICH-GCP evolved. So we are now going to talk about the important milestones. In the past, there were many tragedies which actually took place, and because of that, several regulations came into picture. There was sulfonylamide tragedy, which occurred in 1938. The sulfonylamide elixir, at that time, during the Second World War, sulfonylamide was used predominantly. उस टाइम पे ऐसा था कि किसी को भी वुंड हुआ, सोल्जर्स को ऐसे ट्रेन करा गया था कि आपको कुछ नहीं, सल्फोनिलामाइड पाउडर डाल देना है तो वो इन्फेक्शन आपका प्रिवेंट हो जाएगा. उस टाइम पे इसको मिरेकल ड्रग कहा जाता था. It was considered as a miracle drug at that particular time. So the sponsor thought, why not we prepare a elixir out of it? So they prepared a liquid formulation, and since sulfonylamide was not soluble in water, so one of the pharmacists came with an invention that this is going to get solubilized in diethylene alcohol. So what diethylene glycerol. So what they have done, they mixed it in a diethylene glycerol, and the strength which they have used was 70%. अभी diethylene glycol जो है उसका टेस्ट बहुत प्लेजेंट है, उसकी स्मेल बहुत प्लेजेंट है, तो लोगों को शक ही नहीं हुआ और कोई सेफ्टी प्रोफाइलिंग उसकी नहीं करी गई. डाइथिलीन ग्लाइकॉल की कोई भी सेफ्टी टेस्ट नहीं करे गए, एंड दे हैव added this as an excipient and made a fine elixir. They wanted to use this in a sore throat, and they used it. उस टाइम पे ऐसा था, शक ही नहीं हुआ और कोई सेफ्टी प्रोफाइलिंग उसकी नहीं करी गई. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, there was some disturbance.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, 100 people died in USA. So when they died, there was a back analysis why this happened. So they found that it was because of the presence of 70% of diethylene glycol. So then there was a lot of protest against government, and then the FDA Act for labeling came into picture. So FDA Act for labeling, in this case, it came in 1938, and the first draft was formulated somewhere in 1930s. And this act states that for each and every medication, a labeling is required, and in labeling you have to mention about the safety profiling of a drug. So that was made mandatory after 1938 FDA Act. But again, we are fond of doing a lot of mistakes, and as a human being, हम कभी ना कभी mistakes करते ही रहते हैं. तो एक और जो सबसे बड़ा man-made medical mistake हुआ, that was man-made medical error, was thalidomide tragedy. Now, in late 1950s and 1960s, इसमें thalidomide was widely prescribed medication, and it was used for inducing sleep. And many of the pregnant women has taken this during the first trimester. And what they found, that there were many of the fetus in them, there was a problem, and because of thalidomide disaster, approximately 10,000 children born with a range of severe deformity, and we call it as a phocomelia. या तो phocomelia हुआ यानी sealed limbs हुए, या फिर miscarriage हुआ. As you can see clearly in this picture, the children are with sealed limbs. So ये thalidomide पे भी ये कोई भी टेस्टिंग नहीं हुई थी कि वो फर्स्ट ट्राइमेस्टर ऑफ प्रेगनेंसी में सेफ है या नहीं, और continuously this was prescribed. So again, there's a need for having some good rules, some regulations, and a stringent regulations came into picture. And because of that, again, people started thinking about that there is a strict need of the rules and regulation, and then the Coffey-Harris amendment came in. Then we all have heard about Nazis experiment. हम लोगों ने पढ़ा है कि हिटलर के टाइम पे काफी सारे एक्सपेरिमेंट्स ऐसे हुए जो बहुत ही ज्यादा ह्यूमैनिटी के लिए बहुत बड़ा खतरा माने गए. एंड दे वर एक्चुअली वेरी क्रूअल काइंड ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंट्स, लाइक बच्चों की आंखें निकाल देना, दो ट्विंस की, एंड देन टू सी द सिमिलैरिटीज, हाई प्रेशर देना, एंड देन टू सी व्हाट इज द इफेक्ट ऑफ that high pressure on the human body, then to decrease the temperature to minus 40 degree, and then to see what is the effect on the human body. फिर microorganisms induce करना healthy human beings पे, and then to see what is the effect of it. So such kind of the cruel experiment was carried out on the prisoners by Nazis. And after this, Nuremberg Code came into picture in 1947. This Nuremberg Code has given 10 principles, and still some of the principles like autonomy to the patient, then it is a right of a patient to know what is going to happen to him, all that kind of the things are still followed in Germany. So 1947 Nuremberg Code was primarily focusing on informed consent because none of these prisoners were aware of that there are certain kind of experiments which are going on them. It was a pure, they were considering कि हमें क्योंकि हम prisoner हैं इसलिए हम पे ये अत्याचार करे जा रहे हैं, but it was a kind of experiments which were actually conducted on the prisoners. So after this, informed consent came into picture. So after every tragedy, there was one code which came into picture. The major codes which came into picture or code of medical ethics are 1947 Nuremberg Code, which has actually given 10 principles to guide physician or investigator in experiments involving human subjects. So the Nuremberg Code has given a clear-cut guidelines that these are the things which you have to follow while you are participating or while you are experimenting on the human subjects. Then in 1956, Code of Medical Ethics came into picture, and this was purely related to the patient safety. According to this act, this code, for a physician, patient safety and well-being should be considered, should be the prime most important thing. And the physician has to look after the patient's interest. So this patient safety and well-being was first to be considered for a physician. In 1962, Cofier-Harris Amendment came into picture, and this was, according to this, if you want to manufacture or if you want to market your product, before marketing your product, you have to produce a proof of effectiveness. Means efficacy should be proven, safety should be proven, and after that only you can market your product. Another thing which came into picture with Cofier Harris Amendment was that all the prescription drug, when you're advertising it, it has to, the advertisement of that prescription drug should be monitored by a regulatory authority. So label came into picture, labeling, a law related to labeling came into picture, and then this has also given an instruction which you have to follow while filing a new drug application. So a concept of new drug application came after a Cofier-Harris amendment. Then in 1964, Helsinki Declaration came into picture. This was consisting of ethical principle for medical research involving human subject. Now again in this, again and again, they keep on insisting that when you are doing or when you are involving a human subject, they should be informed that they are participating in a research. And without none of the patient or none of the human subject can be. This was the major substantial thing which came into picture in 1960s. But again, Tuskegee, this is considered as, there was a movie which is named as a Bad Blood. ये बैड ब्लड में टस्कीजी एक्सपेरिमेंट्स का पूरा दिखाया गया है. This started in 1935 and it continued till 1972. Again, this was an example of a cruelty. यहाँ पे जो दो अमेरिकन डॉक्टर्स थे, उन्होंने कुछ ट्राइब्स को लिया और वहाँ उसमें सिफिलिस, ट्रिपेनोमा पैलिडियम, ये सब डाला गया, एंड देन they wanted to actually study the natural progression of a disease syphilis. So उसके लिए उन्होंने healthy volunteers में को infected करा, उसमें syphilis induce किया, and then they have seen the nature progression. Because of this, many of them died, and many of those who remained, they became completely sterile. So because of this experiment, it ट्राइब्स का पूरी की पूरी कम्युनिटी का एग्जिस्टेंस खत्म हो गया। जब ये हुआ तो इसके पीछे मीडिया ने ये रिपोर्ट मीडिया ने 1974 में आउट करी और काफी क्रिटिसाइज करा गया इसको। तो आफ्टर दिस इन 1979 the Belmont report came into picture. Now this Belmont report was based on three main pillars of ethics: respect for those who are participating in a trial, and respect for every human being. Beneficence, what kind of the beneficial effect, what kind of the benefit the patient who is participating in the trial is getting. So respect, beneficence, and justice. These were the three principles of Belmont report. So after this Belmont report only, the guideline related to that the burden of the research should be borne by all the communities equally. This came into picture. So Belmont के तीन मेजर प्रिंसिपल थे, एक था रिस्पेक्ट, दूसरा बेनिफिशियंस और तीसरा जो था वो जस्टिस. And in 1997, Bill Clinton apologized for this Tuskegee syphilis trial publicly. So this kind of unethical issues are not only going to exist in abroad, but it is also going to be seen in our India. So there are many ethical issues in India. Some important one is one of the trial which was very much talked about. It was HPV vaccine trial. ये एक पाथ करके NGO था which was involved in this. ICMR was involved in this. Apart from that, some district of Gujarat, एक्चुअली बड़ौदा का ही एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट था जिसपे ये ट्रायल करा गया, और आंध्र प्रदेश में खामम करके एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट था जहाँ पे ये ट्रायल करा गया. जो पाथ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन था वो था प्रोग्राम फॉर एप्रोप्रिएट टेक्नोलॉजी एंड हेल्थ. सो प्रोग्राम फॉर एप्रोप्रिएट टेक्नोलॉजी एंड हेल्थ, ICMR, गुजरात एंड आंध्र प्रदेश, all of them signed for HPV vaccination study in 2007. और ये फंडेड था गेट्स फाउंडेशन से. वैक्सीन जो डोनेट करी थी वो GSK और MSD ने. ये दोनों बहुत ही बड़ी फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनीज है, वेरी वेल नोन, वेरी मच कंसिडर्ड एज वन ऑफ द टॉप मोस्ट फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनीज, एंड they were considered as the most ethical companies. Now they conducted a trial, HPV vaccination trial, and ICMR was with them. पाथ था, गुजरात गवर्नमेंट ने इसको अप्रूवल दिया था, आंध्र प्रदेश में गवर्नमेंट ने अप्रूवल दिया था, और गुजरात के बड़ौदा में ही इसको करा गया था. स्टडी का जो एम था, इट वाज टू डिटरमिन द एफिकेसी ऑफ HPV वैक्सीन टू प्रिवेंट सर्वाइकल कैंसर इन गर्ल्स एजेड 9 to 50. अभी इसमें पहले तो किसी को पता नहीं चला, ऑल ऑफ देम वर अवेयर ऑफ, उनको सिर्फ इतना ही बताया गया था, दे आर वैक्सीनेटेड. बट व्हाई दे आर वैक्सीनेटेड, व्हाट आर द consequence of vaccination, all that things were never told to them. So 7 girls died. एंड जैसे ही 7 लोगों की डेथ हुई वैसे ही गवर्नमेंट ने इसको सस्पेंड कर दिया, और इसके बाद में इस पे काफी हंगामा हुआ. एंड इन ऑन April 15, 2010, there was an inquiry committee which was made by the government, and they started scrutinizing the things. They found that there were lot of problems, there were lot of loopholes in this study, because HPV virus, ये एक तो जो एज ग्रुप के इंडिविजुअल्स को दिया गया था उसमें सर्वाइकल कैंसर के चांसेस ही नहीं थे. एंड normally it is not recommended that age below 18 years उसमें कोई भी ट्रायल्स करा जाए. Normally the age group, if you see in any of the trial, it is 18 above. And if it is below 18, then it has to be considered as a pediatric trial, and then there is a separate and special kind of the laws which one has to follow. So that guidelines have never been followed, and that's why this was at that particular time it was talk of town. There are many such kind of the trials. Another trial which is of talks were streptokinase trial, and this trial took place in Hyderabad in 2003. Shanta Biotech was the sponsor. Again, nobody was informed that they are participating in a trial. Whenever you are preparing any biotechnological things, then you need to take an approval and permission for conducting a trial by Genetic Engineering Approval Committee (GEAC). उसका भी अप्रूवल नहीं लिया गया था. ट्रायल को किसी भी एथिक्स कमेटी ने रिव्यू नहीं करा था. Informed consent was not taken, and then again 8 patients died. So after the death of 8 patients, again media came into picture. Then the whole clinical research industry was considered. They started considering, and the clinical research industry is treating human being as a guinea pig. और अगर कुछ लोग जो हमारे एज के होंगे उन्होंने देखा होगा इंडिया टुडे पे आर्टिकल्स आते थे जिसमें जेल के पीछे एक ह्यूमन बीइंग है और उसमें गिनी पिग जैसा बनाया हुआ है, एंड देन दे यूज्ड टू राइट दैट वी आर इस फार्मास्यूटिकल इंडस्ट्री ट्रीटिंग human being as a guinea pig. So there were a lot of incidents. Apart from that one famous incident which took place in 2006 in AIMS, where 42, probably more than 100 children died because they were included in a trial of olmesartan and valsartan. Abhi olmesartan and valsartan, both of these drugs are anti-hypertensive. So यूजुअली जब हम एंटी हाइपरटेंसिव का ट्रायल करते हैं तो ऐसे केसेस में हमारे इंक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया में वो लोग ही होते हैं दोज हु आर फ्रॉम 18 to 65, बट ऑल दिस किड many of these children were below age of 1, and they wanted to study the efficacy in a pediatric children. So उन्होंने 1 year से कम वाले बच्चों को भी लिया था, and according to the parents of this trial, those children who have participated in this trial, according to them, they have never been informed about this kind of things. इसके बाद में अभी recently 2017 में एक measles vaccine का हुआ था जिसमें मास में बच्चों की डेथ हुई थी, and then so all this kind of ethical issues are again raised even in India. So in India we are also having few guidelines. We started with an ICMR guideline of ethics for conducting a clinical research, which was followed by Schedule Y, and there are nowadays the recent one is New Drug and Clinical Trial Guidelines 2019, which we are following. So our history has taught us that after every incidence of mistakes or disaster, then only we are formulating a laws, then only we are formulating a guidelines. So similarly, in clinical research industry also, most of the guidelines came into picture only after certain disaster. Now, International Council of Harmonization, this was evolved in 1980. The first thought of it began in 1980 when European Commissioner, they thought that why not to harmonize the things and why not to harmonize the regulatory requirement so that it will be easier for the pharmaceutical company to develop a medicinal product. So they developed a single market. They wanted to develop a single market for a medicinal product. And they started thinking about how feasible it is if all the regulatory guidelines will be harmonized. So in 1989 in Paris, there was a WHO conference of drug regulatory authorities, and International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association. They discussed the Joint Regulatory Industry Initiative, and a thought of ICH conceived. In April 1990, Brussels, again, European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries Association, this again it was a conference. Here the ICH came into existence and ICH committee, steering committee was established. So followed by this, in 1990-91, guidelines on GCP in Europe came into picture, and in 1996, ICH GCP conference was there. After that, in 1997, all clinical trials in Europe, it was made mandatory that all the clinical trials which are conducted in Europe must comply to ICH GCP guidelines. But this is how the GCP evolved. Now, when we are talking about that harmonization, so why this harmonization was needed? This harmonization was needed to make people aware on critical evaluation of a medicinal product. See, because whenever you're going to file an application for clinical trial, you need to submit lot of data. There has to be a preclinical studies which is carried out and data which is generated from the preclinical study. Then there are data which are generated from a clinical studies, and all this data has to be then submitted to the regulatory authorities. So if there will be a different regulations for different countries, again and again you will be doing the same thing again and again. So there will be a lot of duplication. So to avoid this duplication, harmonization was needed. To have a unified standard across all the nation, if you're having a standard rules to be followed, it would be much more everyone to understand about that. Widening market opportunities for pharmaceutical industries, and the for most important point in this was timely access of a patient to safe and effective nutrient. Because although in phase 1 trial only we came to know that this particular medicine is very much important and it's showing a very promising result, but then also till the time it is coming to a market, it is taking almost 10 to 15 years. So if there will be a harmonization, then this time for conducting the things is going to be a little bit lesser, and the patient would be able to access this in a little bit timely manner. So objective of ICH GCP mainly was to protect the patient, to provide a unified standards for the countries, to facilitate global submission through mutual acceptance of a clinical data across ICH GCP region, to avoid trial duplication, and to ensure quality clinical trial data is generated. These were the main objectives. And as I told you that there was harmonization. So structure of ICH parties, the main participants here were 6 parties mainly and 3 observers. These observers were World Health Organization, EFTA, which stands for European Free Trade Association, Canada, and 6 parties were EU, EFPIA, FDA, MHLW, GPMA, PHRMA. Abbreviated expansion of abbreviated forms are given below. EU stands for European Commission, European Union. EFPI stands for European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Association, then US FDA, US Food and Drug Administration, Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, Japan. Actually, MHLWA is the main regulatory body which is looking after the marketing authorization in Japan. So, MHLW, Japan Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association, JPMA, and Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, PHRMA. At that time, Japan was considered as the top topmost manufacturer of a pharmaceutical products. So, what is this ICH all about? This ICH is all about quality. It is going to focus on quality. It is going to focus on safety. It is going to focus on efficacy and M, where all the multidisciplinary things is going to go. So, if you see the ICH document, it is divided into these four parts: quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. We talked about ICH GCP. E6 is a guideline. See, there are various guidelines like E8, E6, E1, E2. So E6 is a guideline which is purely for good clinical practice. So in 1996, ICH GCP E6 came into picture, which was considered as R1. Revision 1 भी उस टाइम पे हुआ था, 91 में पहला ड्राफ्ट बना था. रिवीजन फर्स्ट रिवीजन 1996 में हुआ, 2016 में सेकंड रिवीजन हुआ और अभी ड्राफ्ट इज ऑलरेडी रेडी. ये जो ड्राफ्ट है वो मई 2019 में तैयार हो गया था. उस पर डिस्कशन काफी सारा हो चुका है एंड इट इज प्रपोज दैट रिवीजन 3 is going to come in 2021. So next year probably we are going to get a revised copy of ICH guidelines. Again, we need to get trained ourselves for this. So what is the definition of? What do we know about what is actually good clinical practice? So good clinical practice is an international ethical and scientific quality standard, not only for conducting, but it is right from the first step of a clinical trial, that is designing, conducting, recording and reporting trials that involve participation of a human subject. तो कोई भी रिसर्च जिसमें ह्यूमन बींग्स का इन्वॉल्वमेंट है, ह्यूमन सब्जेक्ट्स का इन्वॉल्वमेंट है, उसका डिजाइनिंग से लेकर फाइनल रिपोर्टिंग तक की चीजें गुड क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस में आती हैं. Now, good clinical practice is not only for a physician, या अकेले डॉक्टर्स के लिए या इन्वेस्टिगेटर्स के लिए नहीं है, ये पूरी टीम के लिए है. तो स्पॉन्सर हो, डॉक्टर, इन्वेस्टिगेटर्स हो, एथिक्स कमेटी हो, जो भी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स पे, उन सब के लिए दिस इज गोइंग टू बी एप्लीकेबल. सो कंप्लायंस विद दिस स्टैंडर्ड provides public assurance that the right, safety, and well-being of a trial subjects are protected. It is consistent with the principles that have their origin in Declaration of Helsinki, and that the the trial data are credible. So, this is to ensure that quality is whatever we are doing it for generating a quality data. So, अगर मैं कॉमन लैंग्वेज में, लेमन लैंग्वेज में बोलूँ, तो गुड क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस इज नथिंग बट इट इज अ क्वालिटी डेटा विच इज जनरेटेड फ्रॉम अ ट्रायल प्लस एथिक्स that constitute a GCP. And mainly this is related with the subject protection and data integrity. So, GCP में आपको कुछ नहीं करना है, बट जो आप कर रहे हैं वो अच्छे से करिए, with ethics करिए, honestly करिए. All that things will be constituted in good clinical practice. So this good clinical practice guidelines, जो पूरा डॉक्यूमेंट है उसमें 8 सेक्शंस है. ये जो 8 सेक्शंस है, इसमें फर्स्ट सेक्शन है वो ग्लॉसरी में से है. फर्स्ट सेक्शन इसका ग्लॉसरी को डेडिकेट करा हुआ है, जिसमें जितने भी टर्म्स एंड रेगुलेशंस है वो सारे दिए गए हैं. सेकंड इज प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ गुड क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस, which is there are 13 principles which are discussed in principles of good clinical practice. Third section is requirement of IRB and IC. Fourth one is for responsibility of investigator, who is IRB or IC, independent ethics committee, institutional ethics committee या फिर independent review board. कि इन्वेस्टिगेटर, स्पॉन्सर, ये मेन स्टेक होल्डर्स माने जाते हैं, और रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटीज, दिस आर द मेन स्टेक होल्डर्स फॉर कंडक्टिंग एनी क्लिनिकल ट्रायल. सो इन सब की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज इसमें दी गई है. Then section 6 is for requirement for clinical trial protocol and protocol amendment. जब आप वो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट तैयार कर रहे हैं कि ये डिजाइन हमें कैसे करना है, उसको हम प्रोटोकॉल बोलते हैं. So protocol is consisting of each and everything, which ethical principles you are following, how you are going to do the trial, right from which kind of the population you are focusing on, what will be the inclusion criteria, what will be the exclusion criteria, what kind of the, how many patients you are going to recruit, for how many durations you are going to recruit. So all that kind of things will be given in a clinical trial protocol. Then the responsibility of a sponsor in the development of investigator brochure. Investigator brochure एक पूरा बड़ा सा बुकलेट होता है जिसमें जो भी इन्वेस्टिगेशनल प्रोडक्ट है उससे रिलेटेड सारे जितने भी जानकारी हो, मीन्स प्री क्लिनिकल डेटा, क्लिनिकल स्टडीज से रिलेटेड रिसर्च वर्क का डेटा, all that thing is given in the investigator brochure. Apart from that, essential document which is constituting the section 8 of ICGCP, जब when we are conducting a clinical research उसमें काफी सारे documents का requirement होता है. Those who are into a clinical research might be aware of it कि एक informed consent document है, फिर एक protocol है, फिर CRF है. तो ऐसे काफी सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं जिसकी जरूरत होती है और ये इसेंशियल डॉक्यूमेंट्स में पूरा का पूरा दिया गया है. नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट अ प्रिंसिपल ऑफ डीसीपी. ये 13 प्रिंसिपल्स हैं विच आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड अगर हम ये 13 प्रिंसिपल्स को फॉलो करते हैं सो प्रोबेबली हम कोई भी इंस्पेक्शन में फेल नहीं होंगे. Principle 1 is clinical trial should be conducted in accordance with the ethical principles that have their origin in the Declaration of Helsinki and are consistent with GCP and the applicable regulatory requirement. See, we have already discussed that जो अभी तक जितने भी थे, डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ हेलसिंकी हो, बेलमैन रिपोर्ट हो, इन सब में 3 things are very very important: respect, informed consent and justice. Respect, beneficence and justice. Respect to the confidentiality of an individual, respect to the patient who is participating in a trial so that he should be aware of each and everything what is going to happen to him. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट उसको बेनिफिट भी मिलना चाहिए, और तीसरा उसको जो ये कोई भी रिसर्च का बर्डन है, बिकॉज रिसर्च ये दोनों टाइप्स के आउटपुट हो सकते हैं, उसका पॉजिटिव आउटपुट्स भी हो सकते हैं, नेगेटिव भी हो सकते हैं. सो बर्डन ऑफ द रिसर्च शुड बी बॉर्न बाय ऑल. सो जितनी भी रेगुलेटरी रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको कंप्लाई करना, दैट इज अ फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल. सेकेंड प्रिंसिपल इज before a trial is initiated, foreseeable risk and inconvenience should be weighed against the anticipated benefit for the individual trial subject and society. हम इसको फार्माकोलॉजी की लैंग्वेज में बोलते हैं रिस्क बेनिफिट रेशियो डिसाइड करता है कि कौन सी मेडिसिन कितना सर्वाइव कर पाएगी और कितना टॉलरेट हो पाएगा. सो किसी भी ट्रायल को इनिशिएट करने से पहले हमें उसका रिस्क बेनिफिट रेशियो और रिस्क बेनिफिट एनालिसिस करनी चाहिए कि वो कितना ढंग से रह पाएगी, मतलब कितना बेनिफिट देगी पेशेंट को. ये जो रिस्क बेनिफिट एनालिसिस होगी ये कॉस्ट पे भी आपको देखना है कि कितना कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव है, कितना सेफ है और कितना स्पॉन्सर की टाइमलाइंस को मैच करता हुआ है. सो वॉलंटियर सेफ्टी शुड टेक प्रेसिडेंस, बट इसमें जो मेजर एम होना चाहिए वो होता है पेशेंट सेफ्टी का. सो पेशेंट सेफ्टी इज गोइंग टू बी ऑन द टॉप. रेस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स यू हैव टू कीप असाइड. Principle 3 is mainly for a subject first. Here, the right, safety, and well-being of a trial subjects are the most important consideration and should prevail over the interest of science and society. Principle 4, adequate data to support the clinical trial. जब भी हम क्लिनिकल ट्रायल कंडक्ट करते हैं तो हम बोलते हैं पेशेंट की मेडिकल हिस्ट्री से लेकर हर एक सोर्स डॉक्यूमेंट. अगर पेशेंट ने सिर्फ पैरासिटामोल भी लिया है, just document it because it might be having some impact. So all the data to support the clinical trial, like जब भी पेशेंट को एनरोल करा जाता है तो हम उसके कुछ बेसलाइन टेस्ट कराते हैं. तो उसके जितने भी रिपोर्ट्स हैं दैट वुड बी कंसीडर्ड एज अ क्लिनिकल इंफॉर्मेशन एंड अ सोर्स डेटा. सो ऑल दैट थिंग टू सपोर्ट द क्लिनिकल दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर मेडिसिन, बिकॉज एक बेसलाइन डेटा होगा, एक फिर मेडिसिन देने के बाद का डेटा होगा. So both of them has to be compared before showing that this particular medicine is efficacious or not. So adequate data to support clinical trial is very, very necessary. And that's why the available non-clinical and clinical information on investigational product should be adequate to support the proposed clinical trial. Then scientifically designed protocol. It has been observed multiple number of times that if the protocols are not designed well, and if the protocol is not having a scientific detailing, then that kind of the things are going to be of no use. They are not producing any results. So clinical trials should be scientifically sound and described in a clear, detailed protocol. ये सेक्शन 6 में दिया हुआ है और इसीलिए एथिक्स कमेटी का रोल यहाँ पे बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट होता है. इफ यू आर अवेयर ऑफ एथिक्स कमेटी दैट उसमें एक फिक्स पैटर्न है कि क्लिनिकल मेंबर्स होने चाहिए, उसमें लेमैन होना चाहिए, उसमें लीगल एडवाइजर होना चाहिए, उसमें बेसिक मेडिकल साइंटिस्ट होना चाहिए. सो ऑल ऑफ देम आर इवैल्यूएटिंग वेदर इट इज साइंटिफिकली clear or not, whether it is in a language. Informed consent mainly is in a language which is going to be easier for a patient to understand, whether it is in an understandable manner or not. So ये clinical trial का जो protocol है, it has to be designed with a scientific rationale. Principle number 6 is oversight by IRB and IEC. A trial should be conducted in compliance with the protocol that has received prior institutional review board or independent ethics committee approval for favorable opinion. See, now oversight by IRB, this is nowadays you might be aware of that many IRBs and ICs are registered, and all the regulatory authorities have given an extra burden to IEC that they have to see each and every aspect of a clinical trial. So IEC का inspection भी अभी धीरे धीरे mandatory हो जाएगा कि IEC को कभी भी randomly inspect करना है साइट को, ये भी धीरे धीरे mandatory हो जाएगा. अगर आप NABH के लिए जाएंगे तो उसमें पूछते ही हैं कि how many times you have inspected the site, how many times you have taken an you have seen an informed consent process. और अप्रूवल के टाइम पे भी अलग अलग मेंबर्स का अलग अलग रोल डिफाइन करा जाता है. दे हैव टू चेक ईच एंड एवरीथिंग. सो ओवरसाइट बाय IRB and IC is going to be crucial, and this is given in a section number 6. So when we are talking about an IC, only few points which I want to talk about here is that composition. So at least 5 members and at least 1 member whose primary area of interest is non-scientific area. ये according to ICH-GCP है, but according to Indian guidelines, we should have at least 7 members. So 7 members में एक क्लिनिकल पर्सन आएगा, एक बेसिक मेडिकल साइंटिस्ट आएगा, एक लीगल एडवाइजर आएगा, एक फीमेल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव होगा और एक लेमैन होगा, एक फिलैंथ्रोपिस्ट होगा. तो इस तरीके से 7 मेंबर्स इंडियन रेगुलेशंस के हिसाब से चाहिए, बट अकॉर्डिंग टू ICH-GCP we need 5 members, but they should be from multidiscipline. Responsibility, इनके main responsibility है safety, right and well-being of the subjects. Then special attention to vulnerable subjects. As I've already told you that Nazi's experiment has been conducted on a prisoners. So prisoners हैं, minors हैं, unemployed लोग हैं और या फिर employed people but those who are belonging to the same institution. अगर मेरे ही इंस्टीट्यूट के कुछ मेरे अंडर में काम करने वाले लोग हैं और मुझे कोई रिसर्च करना है तो मैं उनको अनड्यू इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकती हूँ. सो स्पेशल अटेंशन फॉर दैट काइंड ऑफ अ वल्नरेबल सब्जेक्ट्स. ये सारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आईसी के अंडर में आती है. प्रिंसिपल नंबर 7 इज क्वालिफाइड इन्वेस्टिगेटर. Now, qualified investigator will be those who are going to be qualified by their degree, by their education, and according to ICGCP, they are, if they are having a qualified degree, then only they will be qualified enough to take a medical disease. Okay, so if you are conducting a trial of an allopathic modern medicine, then you should have an MBBS degree. If you are conducting it for Ayurvedic medicine, then you should have a Ayurveda degree. If you are doing it on dentistry, then qualified dentist. Again, because many of us are either going to be an investigator or we are an investigator. So let me talk about little bit of responsibilities of investigator. So investigator का काम ये है कि उसको approved protocol को एक बार अगर प्रोटोकॉल अप्रूव नहीं हुआ है तो आप अपने इनपुट्स दे सकते हैं, स्पॉन्सर को बोल सकते हैं कि ये चीजें एथिकल नहीं है या फिर क्लिनिकली पॉसिबल नहीं है. बट वंस द एथिक्स कमिटी इज गोइंग टू अप्रूव दिस प्रोटोकॉल, then after the approval of protocol by ethics committee, you cannot change the protocol. So you have to follow the approved protocol. And you have to make your team members also to adhere to that protocol. So not only you will be following the protocols, but you are also making your team to adhere to the protocol. Protect human subject. Now, mainly investigator is responsible because ultimately patient को investigator handle कर रहे हैं. So it is a prime responsibility of an investigator to protect the human subject. उसको safety concerns जितने भी होंगे उसके लिए भी investigator responsible है. Investigator को ensure करना है कि जो जब informed consent लिया गया है वो एकदम अच्छे से लिया गया हो. Somebody's mic is not unmuted. Could you please mute कर लें अपने mic को? It is not muted, so there is lot of disturbance. So could you please mute your mic? Then control. See, investigational product should remain under control of an investigator. So without the permission of an investigator, investigational product should not be used. As such, investigational product को हम किसी भी patient के ऊपर use नहीं कर सकते हैं unless and until हमने उसका informed consent sign करवाया हो और उसको enroll करा हो. तो अकेले हम investigational product trial patient को ही दे सकते हैं. इसलिए कितनी भी अच्छी medicine हो, investigational product will be going to be directly under the control of an investigator. He cannot give that particular medicine to anybody. Document study progress. We document study progress is not only related to the progress of a study, but it is also related with all the reports which are actually associated with the patient. So once you are going to enroll the patient, एक बार आपने patient को enroll कर दिया, उसने informed consent sign कर लिया, उसके बाद में आपको उसकी एक-एक reports रखनी है because that reports would be actually going to give us an idea whether the patient is falling into an inclusion and whether it is as per the patient is enrolled as per the inclusion criteria or not. तो ये सब देखने के लिए हमने राइट पेशेंट को एनरोल किया है, उसको राइट तरीके से जो प्रोटोकॉल में दिया हुआ है वो सब अडेयर करके दिया है. ऑल दिस रिपोर्ट्स आर रिक्वायर्ड. So not only to submit appropriate reports, but to retain it for in some of the trial it is for 5 years, in some it is 15 years. So one has to retain that things also. Principle number 8 is qualified research team. So अकेले qualification of the investigator is not only going to fulfill the criteria. हमें पूरी research team भी qualified चाहिए. तो वो अकेले क्वालिफाइड एजुकेशन से नहीं होगी, मतलब उनके पास बी फार्म डिग्री या लाइसेंस डिग्री है, सो दैट ओनली इज नॉट गोइंग टू सफाइस द पर्पस. दे शुड बी एडिक्वेटली ट्रेन्ड. नाउ ट्रेनिंग किस में होगी? ट्रेनिंग होगी जो क्लिनिकल रिलेटेड प्रोसेसेस हैं उसमें, ट्रेनिंग होगी जो गाइडलाइंस है उसमें, जो रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइंस है उसमें. ये सारी चीजों पे ट्रेनिंग भी देना उतना ही जरूरी है. सो क्वालिफाइड बाय एजुकेशन, ट्रेनिंग and experience to perform his or her respective task. Now this is given in section 4.2. So you need to have a qualified investigator, you need to have a qualified team, and you need to have a qualified patient to conduct a clinical trial. Principle number 9 is informed consent. We are talking about informed consent, and lot of the time the queries जब भी FDA इंस्पेक्ट करने आती है तो सबसे ज्यादा फॉर्म 483 मिलते हैं इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट के प्रोसीजर्स को लेके, क्योंकि इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट में काफी सारी मिस्टेक्स पाई जाती हैं. सो इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी वेरी क्रूशियल, एंड freely given informed consent should be obtained from every subject prior to clinical trial participation. And this is based on section 4.8 of ICH-JCP. इसका जो कंटेंट है ये बहुत बार जब हम एकेडमिक रिसर्च करते हैं तो उसमें ये सारे कंटेंट हम ऐड करना भूल जाते हैं. Informed consent in the case of an academic trial is just a single page. See, ethically it is not correct. Whenever you are writing an informed consent or whenever you are preparing an informed consent document, कुछ चीजें हैं इसमें से जो नहीं आएंगी. Say for example, compensation will not come under in academic trials, but rest of the things like research description, risk, benefit, alternative treatment क्या है, confidentiality आप कैसे एड्रेस कर रहे हो, compensation if any, how you are going to give a compensation and how much amount you are going to give. So this compensation normally in the case of a clinical trial is not a compensation for participation. अगर आप participation के लिए compensation देते हो तो that is illegal, unethical. हमें उनको traveling allowance देना होता है. So compensation for travel or transportation is allowed. Then context. अब इसमें context किस किस का होगा? Informed consent है, इसका एक कॉपी पेशेंट के पास रहता है, तो उसमें एक इन्वेस्टिगेटर का होगा, और इन केस पेशेंट को कोई कंप्लेन है, इन्वेस्टिगेटर से वो खुश नहीं है, उसको कुछ कंप्लेन्स हैं, तो एथिक्स कमेटी के मेंबर सेक्रेटरी या चेयरपर्सन में से किसी एक का कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर होना जरूरी है. देन अपॉइंट दैट वॉलंटरी पार्टिसिपेशन, इट इज voluntary participation and he can withdraw his consent at any given moment. So that has to be written. As far as clinical trial is considered, in the informed consent, there is an additional requirement. And this requirement is, first and most important point is a statement stating that this treatment is given as a part of research. Okay. The second point is statement that the particular treatment or procedure may involve risk to the patient. And we have to even write what kind of the risk, anticipated risk कौन से हैं, और usually anticipated ही हम लिख पाते हैं, expected ऐसे ही और AEs ही लिखते हैं. But हमें पेशेंट को ये भी बोलना होता है कि जब भी कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम हो उसको ये expected के अलावा भी, then also he has to tell us about that, because then we will be listing it separately and it can be a new AE for that particular medicine. Then anticipated circumstances under which the subject's participation may be terminated by the investigator. कोई भी एडिशनल कॉस्ट अगर लगने वाली हो, ऐसा कोई भी अगर नई चीज आती है, जो भी न्यू फाइंडिंग्स है, जो पेशेंट के डिसीजन टू रिमेन इन अ ट्रायल इज गोइंग टू get changed because of that, it has to be actually we have to tell that to the patient. Then approximate number of the subject involved in the study. ये सारी चीजें क्लिनिकल ट्रायल के इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट में होनी चाहिए. Principle number 10 is adequate data recording and verification. So all the clinical trial information should be recorded, handled, and stored in a way that allows its accurate reporting, interpretation, and verification. इसमें प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होना चाहिए. इसलिए जब भी हम रिकॉर्ड करें उसको बार बार काटना नहीं है. अगर हम काटें तो सिंगल लाइन से स्ट्राइक ऑफ करके पास में साइन करना है कि वी हैव डन दिस करेक्शन ऑफ सो एंड सो डेट. So that has to be there. And this principle applies to all the records. Paper हो, electronic हो, कुछ भी, सब पे ये होता है. Confidentially, principle number 11 is related to confidentiality. The confidentiality of records that could identify the subject should be protected, respecting the privacy and confidentiality rules in accordance with the applicable guidelines. Now see, in this case, कुछ रिपोर्ट्स ऐसी होती हैं जो हमारी स्क्रीनिंग के पहले की होती हैं, जिसमें पेशेंट का पूरा नाम लिखा होता है. So we have to hide that name with a slip और उसके सिर्फ इनिशियल लिख देना. So anything which is going to give an identity of a patient should be hide. So आइडेंटिटी हमें प्रोटेक्ट करना है. अगर कहीं से भी अगर गलती से भी नाम आ जाता है, अपार्ट फ्रॉम इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट में आता है, उसके अलावा किसी रिपोर्ट में भी आएगा, देन FDA will definitely issue us with a Form 483. Principle number 12 is investigational product. Ultimately जो कुछ भी हो रहा है वो इन्वेस्टिगेशनल प्रोडक्ट का पे ही हो रहा है. उसका बर्डन सभी लोग उठा रहे हैं. पेशेंट भी उठा रहा है, रिसर्च टीम भी उठा रही है और डॉक्टर्स भी उठा रहे हैं. और उसको कैसे ही हम उठा के we want it to get marketing authorization. So it should be handled with the care and utmost care. Investigational product should be manufactured. अभी manufactured भी good manufacturing practice के हिसाब से होना चाहिए. It should be handled and stored in accordance with applicable good manufacturing practice. And they should be used in accordance with the approved protocol. If it is written that it has to be taken with 250 ml of water, then it has to be taken with 250 ml of water. फिर हम ऐसा नहीं कि 200 ml ले लेते हैं, चलता है, 50 नहीं लेंगे तो. क्योंकि अगर प्रोसेस देखने कोई आ गया, then that would be a finding. Principle number 13, quality. Systems with procedures that ensure the quality of every aspect of a trial should be implemented. ये स्पॉन्सर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है, इसलिए स्पॉन्सर को कंटिन्यूसली मॉनिटरिंग और ऑडिट्स करवाने होते हैं किसी भी क्लिनिकल ट्रायल के कंडक्ट के टाइम. So these are the 13 main principles which one has to continuously keep in their mind while conducting a clinical trial. Now coming to stakeholders. Now, as I already told you, the 4 pillars of clinical trials are investigator, sponsor, ethics committee, and regulatory authorities. Although ये investigator के भी बहुत सारे pillars होते हैं, because without clinical research coordinator or clinical research, ये sponsors without clinical research associate, they can do nothing. Okay, so but investigator क्योंकि main signing authority है, so they are the main stakeholder and he is primarily responsible for conducting a clinical trial at site. तो इसका इम्पोर्टेंस इन्वेस्टिगेटर का बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाता है. So he should be aware of what actually is an IP. इसलिए उसको इन्वेस्टिगेटर ब्रोशर में से एटलीस्ट उतना पता होना चाहिए जिससे वो अपने पेशेंट्स के सेफ्टी को और पेशेंट को प्रोटेक्ट कर सके. He should be aware of a protocol to know that all the team members are adherent to the protocol. They are complying the protocol. He should be competent and experienced, and he should have an adequate team and resources. Sponsor. Sponsors is actually many a times he is delegating his duty either to the investigator or to the contract research organization. But ultimately, this is a prime duty of a sponsor to maintain the quality. जो भी डेटा अल्टीमेटली जनरेट होगा उसका इम्पैक्ट स्पॉन्सर पे ज़्यादा पड़ता है. So continuously he has to look after a safety evaluation of the IP. इन्वेस्टिगेटर ब्रोशर और प्रोटोकॉल कंटिन्यूसली अपडेट हो रहा है क्योंकि जैसे ही ट्रायल स्टार्ट होता है और ट्रायल कंप्लीशन तक काफ़ी सारी न्यू इंफॉर्मेशंस एड ऑन होती रहती हैं. तो वो न्यू इंफॉर्मेशन को इन्वेस्टिगेटर ब्रोशर में और प्रोटोकॉल में अपडेट करते रहना पड़ता है. सिमिलरली इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट में भी he should promptly notify all the concern of findings that could adversely impact the safety of a subject. जैसे ही कोई नई एडवर्स इफेक्ट की जानकारी मिलती है तुरंत ही हैज टू रिपोर्ट इट बिकॉज लाइन लिस्टिंग होता है, लिस्टिंग ऑफ ए होता है, ऐसे ही होता है. तो वो सारी इंफॉर्मेशन इससे कंप्लीट लेबलिंग तैयार होती है. Sorry. Then ethics committee, because ultimately ethics committee has to oversee the whole thing, whole conduct of a trial. They have to look after the protection and rights of the subject. They have to review all the documents, approve all the documents, including the informed consent, and they have to see whether the study has been conducted in an ethical manner or not. So, इनको periodic inspection भी करना काफी जरूरी हो जाता है. Regulatory authorities, they will be mainly responsible for checking the completeness of preclinical and clinical data. They'll review, approve, and they'll do continuous assessment. And they are the competent authorities who ultimately is going to give a final authorization to the product. So all these four are going to be important pillars or important stakeholders of a ICH for following the ICH GCP. Now how one can apply the GCP? Application of the GCP is not possible without knowledge. अगर आपने उसको पढ़ा ही नहीं होगा, अगर आपको पता ही नहीं है कि क्या दिया है ICH GCP पे, so you are not going to follow this. Another thing is experience. With experience, you learn how to do this. And see, ICH GCP training लेने से कुछ नहीं होता है because you are just going to add on one more lecture. But when you are actually going to get involved in a clinical trial और जब आप practice करते हैं right from the beginning कि हमें ये ethical standards follow करने हैं, we have to maintain this quality standard, then only you will be able to adhere to all the GCP guidelines. Otherwise, training या knowledge acquire करने से कुछ नहीं होता है. But again, फिर भी knowledge का importance है because अगर आपको पता नहीं होगा तो without that you won't be able to do this. Then with knowledge and experience, you should have adequate infrastructure so that everything like IP investigational product को एक protected area में store करना होता है. तो अगर आपके पास infra ही नहीं है, you won't be able to do that. You should have an adequate people and resources. Training is again and again required because see we all have got our own perception. तो जब हम knowledge acquire करते हैं तो हर चीज के हम अपनी अपनी तरीके से मीनिंग निकालते हैं और उसके अलग अलग तरीके से तोड़ भी निकालते हैं. सो ट्रेनिंग इज ऑलवेज गोइंग टू गिव अस अ राइट thing, a right kind of understanding, and that's why this is necessary. Then decision making capabilities, that ultimately what kind of the decision we have to take if there is some lacuna. So all that thing is required. See, Benjamin Franklin, I think so that many of us are aware of him. इन्होंने फोकल लेंथ और उसको डिस्कवर किया था. He told, according to him, tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. Same is applicable for GCP. आपको मैं बोलूंगी GCP फॉलो करो फॉलो करो फॉलो करो और मैं ऐसे ही बोलती जाऊंगी, आप भूल जाएंगे. मैं आपको पढ़ाऊंगी, थोड़े दिन के लिए रिमेम्बर रहेगा, उसके बाद में फिर वो कहीं इरेज हो जाएगा. फिर जब तक हम खुद इन्वॉल्व नहीं होंगे, जब तक हम उसको खुद प्रैक्टिस नहीं करेंगे, till that time we are not going to learn exactly what is required and what is actually has to be done for GCP. Thank you for a patience learning. Hello. With the same. Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Can I come in?
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Yeah.
First, I thank the speaker for an extremely comprehensive, address on and a very lucid address on a very difficult topic. Difficult. Why I say that is because it is all about regulations, and most of us follow these regulations by force and not by some real liking. My heart really goes out to the clinicians who undertake the responsibility of conducting a clinical trial, which is not their primary work. They love to look after their patients very well. And when it comes to the trial on a product given by a sponsor, and when they listen to all this responsibilities, they would say, "Oh, do I have to do all this? Is there no way out?" But the fact is that yes, the only way out or the best way out is always through. So you have to follow all these rules and regulations when you are conducting a trial, and that's why they are called GCP guidelines. And so everyone has to follow. This is like a quality control of clinical trials. For example, a marketeer wants to market. A manufacturer wants to manufacture a product. A clinician wants to look at his patients. But QC is something which no one wants to do, but is an absolute must for any quality product. And in this case, the quality product is your trial. The clinical trial is of quality and safety only if you follow all these GCP guidelines. So with that, if there are any questions people may ask, so are there any questions from anyone? So good. If there are any other questions, we can always, I or the speaker can always address it later. So thanks all for attending this webinar on ICH GCP. And again, thanking the speaker. Here I am, Dr. Date, HOD Pharmacology, signing off from this webinar.
Thank you, sir. It's always my pleasure to be a part of, act as a speaker for you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Sir. Okay.
अच्छा था
देख
वहां से ज्वाइन नहीं हो पा रहे थे This link is not for your institution.
Okay.